Molly Tibbetts was 20 years old, from Brooklyn. She had been attending the University of Iowa. She was home for the summer. And on July 18th, 2018, she was dog sitting for her boyfriend, Dalton Jack. And the evening of July 18th, she went for a run and didn't come back.
She wasn't a drug user, didn't drink. She had a boyfriend. They were about to get engaged. She was beloved in the community. She was a high school athlete, a very good student at the University of Iowa.
There were no real signs as to where she went. The only thing missing from her place were her phone and her running shoes.
The first few days were kind of a sense of hopelessness for me. We had no real leads. Usually you look at the boyfriend first. He was actually 2 hours away at the time of her disappearance.
So we had nothing at all. But after a couple of days, there was a substantial break in the case.
In the days following Tibbetts' disappearance, an FBI phone analysis helped authorities track down her location, where she went missing while out for a run in her Iowa hometown.
Her phone was communicating with the cell tower. An agent from the digital unit within the FBI was able to download the information and make a determination as to where she was running at the time that Molly went missing. And it was out on the county blacktop roadway east of Brooklyn, just outside of town. Investigators could see her cell phone was moving at about a 10-minute pace for a mile, which is about what she was jogging normally.
She was moving at a running pace, and that something happened for a couple minutes. And now, all of a sudden, she's moving at a 60-mile-per-hour pace.
The search for Molly's been going on for almost a month when investigators find a lead. A glimpse of Molly on some home surveillance video.
Finding her on video was so big for us because just literally a few seconds after you see her run by, you see a black Malibu drive by too, which is very eerie. It literally showed the black Malibu circling Molly. So the car was stalking her.
Eventually, they were able to pinpoint the car to the owner, which was Christian Behena Rivera.
¿Cómo te diste cuenta de esa chica que se desapareció?
Pues por los póster y todo eso, y pues luego empezó a aparecer en Facebook, muchos amigos empezaron a compartir.
Throughout this interview, Mr. Behena was very calm, but then she confronted him with the screen capture of the vehicle that he was driving in the surveillance video.
He immediately says, oh yes, that's my car.
Yo había mirado a una persona corriendo. ¿Te miraba?
¿Tú te recuerdas exactamente cómo iba ella ese día? ¿Porque frenaste? ¿La miraste?
Pero yo no,
¿Te gustó? ¿Te hizo atractiva? ¿Te llamó la atención?
Pues estaba, pero no la miré como la cara.
No, solamente te fijaste en el físico.
Pues sí.
¿Te diste la vuelta porque la querías mirar otra vez?
Ya.
Mr. Behena admitted he followed Molly out of town.
Pues nunca he hablado de esto, Marina. Pero hay como momentos en los que no recuerdo lo que hago en muchas ocasiones. Creo que el último recuerdo que tuve fue mirarla corriendo. Pues no sé si hay una tercera primero que digo que yo no recuerdo qué pasó después de haberla mirado por última vez.
People that commit crimes make up stories to get out of trouble. A lot of times they say they blacked out, they have no idea what happened. I then come in and say, hey, Christian, you can't just be partially good. You have to now take us to Molly. We have to give her back to her family. He didn't have any problem with that.
In the morning on August 21st, 2018, Mr. Behena brought law enforcement to the cornfield.
He's walked out into this area of the corn that had been cleared out. He walks to the end of that area where the corn stalks are still standing and nods with his head and said, "She's over there." Investigators walked about 20 to 25 yards into the corn and immediately found her.
The main points that we felt certain that the defense would try to attack and poke holes in, first and foremost, that would have been the video of the defendant's Chevy Malibu. Deputy Kivy, what was significant about that video? Second, we discussed Molly's blood and DNA in Mr. Bahena's Malibu.
So Molly Tibbetts' blood is in the trunk of the Malibu.
Yes, the DNA profile matched the known DNA profile of Molly Tibbetts, and exactly the same.
Okay. And then 3 was what he said in his statement during the interrogation, which was what we termed a confession. Ms. Romero, during this conversation, does the defendant ever admit to you that he had anything to do with harming Molly Tibbetts?
He showed me the cornfield, and he goes, "This is the cornfield where I took her out of the trunk, carry her on my shoulder, drop her on the ground, cover her with leaves, and I left right away."
All right. That was our approach to the case, is we wanted to keep the jury on that kind of straight and narrow path. These are the 3 components, and beyond a reasonable doubt, it proves that Christian Rivera is the one who murdered Molly Tibbetts.
You would agree with me that my client was stuck in this room for approximately 11 hours.
Yes, that was the approximate time of the interview.
He fell asleep multiple times during breaks of this interview, isn't that right?
According to the recording, yes. During my presence, no.
Basically, anytime there was a break, he put his head down or leaned back and went to sleep, isn't that right?
Yes.
The crux of their argument was that the way that Christian was handled as a suspect led to his false confession.
Did you tell law enforcement the truth that night?
No toda.
You got home from work. After you took a shower, what did you do?
Salí del baño.
What did you see?
2 personas en mi sala.
Those 2 people in your living room, how were they dressed?
Con tapados de la cara.
Did those men have any sort of weapons?
El más grande, miré que tenía un arma y el otro tenía una navaja. Subimos al carro. Solo me dijeron que manejara derecho.
Did they make any comments while you were driving?
Sí, uno le dijo al otro algo sobre alguien corriendo.
When you drove, did you see anyone?
Sí,
Who did you see?
a una persona corriendo.
Now, do you recognize that person was Molly Tibbetts?
Así es.
What happens next?
Solo seguimos manejando y después me piden que dé la vuelta. Manejamos un poco y unos metros adelante me piden que que me pare.
He stated that as they approached Molly, they stopped. She had gone over a hill.
El de la parte de enfrente, debajo del carro.
The man with the knife got out and went after her, but he did not see what happened.
How long was he gone?
Alrededor de 10, 12 minutos.
My initial gut reaction when I was listening to this story was it kind of seems suspect or really out of left field, because we had not heard anything. This case is 3 years old, and this is the first time that we've ever heard that story, so it was kind of mind-blowing.
Do you know who the people were that were in that car with you?
No.
What happened next?
Alrededor de los 12 minutos, la persona regresa de vuelta al carro.
And then he says he heard them put something in the trunk. He didn't see what it was.
Tomaron mis llaves y mi teléfono. Antes de irse, uno de ellos me dice que no fuera a decir nada de lo que había pasado, que ellos conocían a Iris y conocían a mi hija, que si decía algo ellos se iban a encargar de ellas.
After that, what happened?
Me bajé de mi carro porque no tenía mis llaves. Obviamente sabía que había algo en la cajuela. porque anteriormente ya había sentido cuando pusieron algo en la cajuela.
Did you look in the trunk?
Sí,
What did you see?
un cuerpo.
Was that the body of Molly Tibbetts?
Sí. Estuve un par de minutos pensando qué hacer, pero fue cuando decidí solo bajarla del carro.
Why didn't you call the police, sir?
Porque estaba asustado.
Why were you scared?
Porque si hubiera llamado a la policía, esto es algo que no se miraría nada bien.
What did you do next, sir?
Solo como pude, le bajé el carro y decidí ponerla en el maíz. Recordaba que ellos me decían si decía algo, iban a hacerle algo a mi familia, a mi hija y a mi novia.
You never mentioned two other men to Officer Romero, is that correct?
Correcto.
Rivera's story is that he was working on July 18th at Yerby Farms, that he gets home, he's by himself at home, and these two men show up. These men had their faces covered.
Sí.
They were wearing sweaters, you said?
Sí.
And long pants?
Sí.
And what was covering their face exactly? Like a stocking cap?
Algo así.
So these masked men are dressed head to toe in sweaters, long pants, and ski masks. So his story covers really every inch of their body. So no identifying tattoos or marks. That's awfully convenient. You drove the two men in your Malibu to the cornfield where you dumped Molly Tibbetts, correct?
Sí.
And you're telling us that you drove back to your home alone.
Correcto.
The other two men that were there, did they just walk back?
Ellos corrieron hacia la carretera.
So they ran towards the road and just disappeared?
Yo no los volví a ver, no sé dónde.
And you happened to find your cell phone and the keys in the trunk of the car.
Sí.
And these two men just disappeared.
Correcto.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Christian Fahina Rivera, guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree.
It is the order and judgment of this court that the defendant be and is hereby committed for a lifetime sentence with no eligibility for parole.